President Lai Ching-te strikes a conciliatory tone in his first National Day speech, but vows to protect Taiwan's sovereignty.
在这块土地上成长茁壮，中华人民共和国无权代表台湾。
Storm Milton slams into Florida, leaving millions without power. An investigation is launched into the cause of a deadly hospital fire in the south of the country. Plus, setting down roots, we meet the couple bringing the taste of Taiwan to Southern California. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. Thanks for tuning in. President Lai Ching-te says China has no right to represent the people of Taiwan. That was in his speech to mark Taiwan's National Day. Lai also said that he is willing to cooperate with Beijing. As Rick Lau reports, he's treading a fine line as trouble brews at home and abroad.
On the streets of Taipei, a vivid display of what it means to be Taiwanese as the country marks its National Day. Presiding over festivities for the first time, President Lai Ching-te, who took place some 6 months ago.
一起为今天美丽的台湾喝彩，迎向明天更美好的台湾。
Since assuming the presidency, Lai has had to deal with China's increasing aggression towards Taiwan, which it claims as part of its territory.
在这块土地上成长茁壮，中华人民共和国无权代表台湾。2300万台湾人民更要向全世界开枝散叶，迎向未来。
Beijing takes particular issue with Lai and his position on Taiwanese self-rule, labelling him a dangerous separatist. Lai's stance also has him fending off hostility at home. The legislature is in the hands of opposition parties sympathetic to China, and they threatened to block Lai's 2025 budget if he took too hard a line on Beijing in this speech.
So the pressure that Lai is under is one domestic, where the opposition is quite eager to seize on everything that he says to say that he's endangering the people on Taiwan. Then at the same time, Lai has to worry about the external factors. So one would be how Beijing reacts, whether Beijing will put more pressure on Taiwan.
But in his National Day address, Lai also offered a rare olive branch to Beijing.
台湾有决心致力维护台海的和平稳定，成就全球的安全和繁荣，也愿意和中国共同因应气候变迁、防堵传染病。 以及维护区域安全，追求和平共荣，为两岸人民带来福祉。
Beijing has yet to comment on Lai's speech, but it's expected to respond with military drills in the coming days. The Taiwanese president trod a fine line in his address to the nation, standing up for his country's sovereignty, careful not to provoke political opposition at home, and wary of increasing the ire of a neighbour that threatens its future. Chris Ma and Rick Lowett for TaiwanPlus.
Let's get more now from Louise Watt, who is in our Taipei newsroom. Louise, much of the National Day focus has been, of course, on President Lai and his statements, but let's talk a bit about who wasn't there. Were there any notable absences?
There was one, Eric, former President Ying-jeou. He's from the opposition KMT. He's of the view that Taiwan and China are part of the same nation, and he said that he wasn't attending in opposition to Lai advocating that Taiwan and China are actually two nations. He says that's something that's simply unconstitutional. But this isn't the first time that Ying-jeou has not attended the National Day event for political reasons. What's more interesting and surprising is a former president who did show up today convicted felon Chen Shui-bian. Now, he is from Lai's party, and he was president for 8 years up until 2008. After that, he was convicted of bribery and money laundering, and he's serving a 20-year prison sentence, although he's been out on medical parole for about 9 years now. Now, he had pride of place on the stage with other dignitaries. President Lai even referred to him being there in his speech. So everyone knew he was there. The question is, why? Well, we have to remember that Lai toned down his speech when it came to China. He was much more mild, much more conciliatory towards China than he has been in the past. And one of the analysts who I've been talking to today said that Lai is keen to keep on board the more hardline pro-Taiwanese independence supporters. They were part of the people who voted him into power. And part of the way he can keep them happy is by inviting someone like Chen Shui-bian to attend an event like this, because he's known as being a staunch supporter of Taiwanese independence. Now, what's also interesting is that Chen's parole does not allow him to attend political events, so we don't know if he was given special permission to attend from the Ministry of Justice. Lai's predecessor, in her 8 years, she did not pardon him. Might Lai pardon Chen? Speculation will grow given his unexpected appearance today.
Thanks for that, Louise. That was Louise Watt live from our Taipei newsroom. Now, China has already reacted to President Lai's address, calling it a, quote, secessionist speech. Now, all eyes are on what Beijing's military reaction might be. Jaime Okan has been monitoring the situation around Taiwan.
China has been increasing its military activity in the region ahead of Taiwan's National Day. On Thursday, Taiwan's Defense Ministry reported 27 Chinese military aircraft operating around the country. That's an unusually high number. Now, 15 of those planes breached Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This airspace is not part of Taiwan's territory, but the military uses it as a buffer zone for security purposes. Those planes were part of a joint combat readiness patrol. It's important to remember that Chinese planes around Taiwan is a common way in which Beijing puts pressure on the country, but it's pretty likely that we'll see more activity coming from China. Back in May, after President Lai Ching-te's inauguration speech, China reacted with 2 days of large-scale exercises called Joint Sword 2024-A. That simulated an attack on Taiwan with more than 100 aircraft taking part in that drill. Analysts say that Taiwan could use Taiwan's National Day, as a pretext to conduct more exercises.
I don't want to say reaction because I think pretext is the right word. I think they're looking for an excuse. Obviously, they can just ratchet up the political pressure on the Lai administration. They can also use this to just normalize military activity that didn't used to be normal. And then, of course, in every one of these exercises, they are getting the chance to practice the things that they would want to practice before they might have to actually do this for real.
Sources within Taiwan's Defense Ministry tell me that they are on the lookout for some sort of large-scale exercise, maybe even a Joint Sword B, which would be part 2 of China's exercises that took place in May. That could possibly simulate a blockade of Taiwan, which could last anywhere from a few days to even maybe a week. Howard Zhang and Jaime Okan in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
In his speech, President Lai said that he is willing to work with China in a bid to tamp down tensions. To learn more about how Beijing may react to those comments, Ado Brar spoke to Han Yang, a former Chinese diplomat now based in Sydney.
Today, President Lai Ching-te said that he would resist attempts at annexation or encroachment on Taiwan's sovereignty. How is China likely to react to these comments?
China's position towards Taiwan hasn't changed since 1949. It has always maintained that Taiwan is part of China and the government in Taiwan is illegitimate. So I believe that whatever the President Lai say or any reconciliatory gesture will be ignored by China, and it will maintain its own schedule towards what it calls national reunification.
President Lai Ching-te struck a conciliatory tone in his National Day speech, vowing to work with China. Is China likely to view this in a positive light?
Beijing has always been deeply suspicious of the Democratic Progressive Party towards President Lai's two predecessors. And I don't think they will change their attitude towards President Lai. They remain deeply suspicious of the motive of President Lai and his party. And I think Beijing will be secretly hoping to work on the next election to help elect another leader who can be more friendly with China's position, namely probably from the Nationalist Party.
China recently berated President Lai for his comments about Taiwan's Republic of China being older than China's People's Republic. Is today's speech likely to change China's views of President Lai as a so-called independent separatist?
What happens in the future in the Taiwan Strait will mostly be decided by Beijing's own schedule. When it feels itself ready to take over Taiwan, it might do so. Another factor might be what the United States, how will they react, whether they will commit to defend Taiwan. So that's the two major factors. I think Beijing would rather sit out with President Lai's term and wait for a more friendly leader to, if possible, for a future peaceful negotiation over Taiwan status. But I highly doubt they will sit down with President Lai, because the precondition set by the DPP as an equal partner is not going to be accepted by China.
That was Han Yang, a former Chinese diplomat. And how will Lai's speech go down in Washington? For that, Louise Watt spoke to Ross Feingold, a political risk analyst based here in Taipei.
How will Lai's speech be viewed in Washington, do you think?
Probably just as most other speeches by Taiwan's president is viewed. What the United States is really looking for or is concerned about are any moves towards anything along the lines of de jure independence. What the U.S. is most concerned about is whether or not the president says we're an independent country called Taiwan, which President Lai did not do. He emphasized, as he always does now when he makes a major speech, he emphasized that the People's Republic of China and the Republic of China on Taiwan are not subordinate to each other. And it's pretty clear that given the frequency that the president uses that line, and before President Lai, President Tsai also used that line, it's pretty clear that the United States is okay with that. Otherwise, if the United States wasn't okay with that, it's likely the president would not keep using it.
How is Lai viewed by the US government?
In my own opinion, President Lai was the preference of the United States during Taiwan's presidential election campaign last year with the voting this past January. I think Lai was preferred over the Kuomintang or Chinese Nationalist Party candidate Hou You-yi or the Taiwan People's Party candidate, former Taipei City Mayor Ko Wen-je. And I think Lai, compared to the other two candidates, had a higher level of familiarity to U.S. policymakers, given that he's been involved in politics for so many years as a legislator, as the mayor of Tainan City, as the executive UN premier, and as vice president over the preceding 4 years. And so I think the United States had a comfort level with Lai. They knew that President Lai was going to follow in President Tsai's footsteps when it comes to China policy or relationship with the United States.
That was Ross Feingold, a political risk analyst based in Taipei. The National Day celebrations kicked off with colorful performances in the capital, and many people in the audience were excited to see acts that showcased the country's diversity. Tiffany Wong was outside the presidential office.
Wishing the country a happy 113th National Day. Thousands of people came to the presidential office to celebrate this morning, and so did a dozen performance groups showcasing the country's diversity. The Taipei First Girls High School Honor Guard kicked off the parade, accompanied by the Air Force's Brave Eagles aerobatics team. And behind them on the main stage, President Lai Ching-te watching them for the first time as the nation's leader.
今年应该蛮好的，对，新总统新上任了以后，应该有新的气象。
Some spectators were excited to see the same bands that perform each year, while others were there to catch a glimpse of some of the country's hottest athletes, including Olympic champions like gold medalist boxer Lin Yuting and some younger stars.
感谢你们。龟山少棒队到威廉波特已经第4次了。那这个国庆日，我们很多优秀的运动选手今天都会出现在这个场合，来接受大家共同来庆祝。那我也相信他们的荣耀就是代表为这个国家这块土地而奉献。
There was also a special performance from Alephis, an Amis dance group from Hualien County in East Taiwan, an area hard hit by a deadly earthquake earlier this year. The celebration was meant to highlight the country's achievements in the past year, emphasizing its multiculturalism, unity, and strength.
Now the festivities are set to continue with a fireworks show in Yunlin County in central Taiwan, really spreading that celebratory spirit from here at the presidential office to every corner of the nation on its birthday. Scott Huang and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Supporters of the embattled Taiwan People's Party have held a rally in Taipei in stark contrast to the country's National Day celebrations. Speeches about the state of the justice system and steps to curb the death penalty painted a bleak picture of the state of the nation. The tone of that gathering was very different to the optimism of the official National Day event earlier. The Taiwan People's Party is trying to weather a scandal that has seen its founder and central figure, Ko Wen-je, detained for suspected corruption. In the U.S., Hurricane Milton has slammed into Florida. It was a Category 5 storm, now downgraded to a Category 1. But it's still packing strong winds and has left millions of people without power. Joyce Tseng has more.
Hurricane Milton makes landfall in Florida, packing howling winds as strong as 205 kilometers an hour at its peak. Residents in coastal and low-lying areas were ordered to evacuate as the U.S.'s third most populous state hunkered down for a night of heavy rain, rising water levels, and destruction, strong winds tearing the roof of a stadium. Over 2 million homes and businesses lost power, and deaths were confirmed in an eastern county, though exact numbers are still unclear. The storm brought a series of tornadoes to the area before weakening after making landfall. It destroyed over 120 homes, including this one in Fort Myers.
All this happened like instantaneously. Like these windows blew out. I was about probably right here when it happened.
Residents here were still recovering from Hurricane Helene, which hit 2 weeks ago and killed over 200 people in 6 states. As they race to evacuate, the trauma for many goes deeper than Helene. They're still reeling from Hurricane Ian that struck 2 years ago, Florida's costliest and most catastrophic storm.
You know, everybody's got anxiety, like PTSD sinking in from Hurricane Ian. Because we know the aftermath.
I'm tired of prepping. I mean, I'm thinking of running around since like 3 or 4 days constantly and prepping, you know, and it's just exhausting.
As they prepare to deal with the devastation, first responders are also bringing with them lessons from Hurricane Ian.
So what we have behind me here is a few of our marine assets. We have our airboat in the county. This airboat was actually deployed with us on Ian, and it proved to be one of the best resources we had.
Speaking from Washington, U.S. President Joe Biden tells Florida residents he and Vice President Kamala Harris are with them to rescue, recover, and rebuild. The president also slamming Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump for seeking political gain in a time of crisis by falsely saying aid is being diverted from residents.
It's undermining confidence in the people in Florida. Quite frankly, these lies are un-American.
Though Hurricane Milton has dropped in intensity since making landfall, it remains an extremely dangerous storm, threatening heavy flooding and strong winds as it continues to move over Florida. Alex Chen and Joyce Sin for TaiwanPlus.
Keelung Mayor George Xie is asking residents to vote no to his recall on Sunday. To drum up support, he is highlighting his accomplishments since taking office in the northern city.
基隆市府在这1年8个月是有很多成绩的，是有努力做事的，所以在这一次的投票，拜托大家一定要支持我们基隆市府，支持国良，投出我们的不同意罢免票。
Civic groups began a campaign to recall Xie back in March. They say he has failed in his role as mayor and that he mishandled a property development in the city. At least one critic says they faced online harassment due to their activism.
他开始用我小孩的名字做假账号，然后在下面留说我是个不称职的家长什么的，我就开始觉得非常恐慌。
Xie's party, the KMT, has sent national heavyweights to campaign on his behalf. A deadly hospital fire last week is under investigation, and one lawmaker wants to know why known safety issues were not addressed in time. John Van Trieste reports.
A busy hospital engulfed in flames as a powerful typhoon passed overhead. It was a nightmare scenario investigators want to make sure never happens again. 9 died in the electrical fire at Pingtung County's anti-hospital last week, and some are wondering whether negligence is to blame. One of them is lawmaker Lin Shu-fen of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, who has questions for health officials.
你们也证实了，评鉴的时候就看到有管线老旧和疏散动线等病安的部分。好，你们都看，当时就看到。但从8月到发生火灾的10月3号之间，我要问你们，你们有要求医疗院所应立即改善吗？
But an opposition Kuomintang lawmaker, who happens to be the hospital's honorary head, rejects the idea the hospital's electrical cables were old, as the building was only 10 years old. He says the disaster was the result of a perfect storm of problems, including the typhoon, leaving staff in an extremely tough position.
整栋大楼是黑麻麻的黑烟，我们的护理人员是一个一个把病人背下来。那这一次呛伤死亡的都是卧床的。
The health ministry says it will look at adding safety criteria to its hospital inspections in the future.
卫福部不但呢会全力来支持屏东的医疗量能再度提升，也希望我们所有的医疗院所能够更安全。
Still, this isn't the only hospital fire to hit Taiwan in recent years. And one NGO believes the safety inspections the health ministry does at hospitals once every 4 years are full of flaws when it comes to fire safety and emergency responses.
这些其实都在凸显现在制度的漏洞，那卫福部应该要负起改革的责任。
This NGO agrees that disasters like the Antai hospital fire might be preventable if only appropriate regulations are passed and enforced. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's population is continuing to drop. Government data shows the population decreased by 2,500 people in September as more people died than were born. And while 1,300 people arrived from abroad, that was not enough to offset the overall decline. There have also been fewer births compared to the same period last year, contributing to the gradual population decrease. Taiwan's military says it will begin mass production of a domestically made suicide drone. The country's largest weapons maker, the Zhongshan Institute, is set to produce an initial batch of 48 Jianxiang drones, with plans to make 200 by 2025. These unpiloted systems have a range of up to 1,000 kilometers, and they explode on impact. A small family-owned farm in California has been growing Taiwanese fruit and vegetables in a suburban backyard for over 20 years. It's become a pillar of the local community, providing a small taste of home over 10,000 kilometers away from Taiwan. Wesley Lewis reports.
Couple Liao Da-sheng and Du Fu-zhen emigrated from Taiwan to Southern California over 2 decades ago. They've put down roots there, creating a new home and a small farm.
提议说我要来种菜然后呢，因为有这么一大片的空地嘛，所以就是这样开始慢慢在开花。
They say they learned most of what they know about agriculture from career farmers back in Taiwan.
我每次回台湾的时候，我都会去像农会，还是说农业专家，还是一些比较特殊的水果农场，他们都有产销班，请教他们。 台湾的天气跟这边天气差别很大，你必须要去摸索它，如何让它在这边吃的味道口感都跟台湾一样。
The couple grow over 10 different kinds of organic fruit and vegetables, all of which are commonly found in Taiwan, but are hard to come by in the U.S.
台湾的口感，我们这边的乡亲绝对会非常喜欢，非常接受。那尤其是莲雾在这边说职业厂的莲雾在这边目前还没有。
Over the years, they have slowly introduced more new additions to their crops, including dragon fruit. Their produce has already garnered a loyal customer base.
我的女儿因为在美国生的，可是回到台湾之后吃到莲雾就好喜欢，所以后来发现这边有卖莲雾，我们就特别订了莲雾来这边买。
For now, Liao and Du don't plan on expanding their farm. They say they're satisfied with their backyard business, bringing a small piece of Taiwan to their local community in California. Joseph Wu and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Yunlin County's Beigan Caotian Temple is setting up a conservation center to care for its collection of over 15,000 historic religious objects. A local university is working with the temple to invest around $31,000 over the next 4 years into restoring the temple's collection and training conservators. Beigan Caotian Temple is a center of worship for the sea goddess Matsu, and it welcomes over 8 million visitors each year. The first item slated for restoration is a book from 1767, documenting the goddess's history. Thanks for joining us this evening on TaiwanPlus News. Head on over to our website to see more of our reports or grab our app to get updates on your mobile device. Finally, enjoy some more shots from Taiwan's National Day celebrations. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and the National Day,
download the TaiwanPlus app.